Hey, what's up, guys? I was at the comic store I like to go to. They have an example of what a store that specializes in back issues and other things other than comics. What you should do, you always keep the stuff moving. There's plenty of old stuff. They keep circulating it, and so I went by the same bin where I got the the Scream Factory mag that I went over, and I saw this on top, the first issue of Scary Monsters. I think I remember this way, way back when it was printed in bloody October 1991. That was 34 years ago. Oh, yeah. So it seems like 60 years ago to me. But I'm just saying that I saw this and I was like, wow, man, number one. And the price, it was a reasonable price for the condition this was in. So I said, let me get this. This has got to be a video. Scary Monsters, like I said, it's changed hands to different people, but it's still going strong. It's still going strong on the newsstands and the format it has now. It's the perfect mix of professional, but still being by the fans, for the fans. Now, obviously, this came out. Talking about DIY, man. DIY. It's not that different from like the mini comics where like it's like stapled. Right? I mean, you can say, oh, they're all stapled, but you know what I mean. The layout of it, the hand drawn logo, right? The collage type, put it over, analog, obviously, photo stat, put it over the photos. Uh, Very DIY, very punk rock, very black metal, right? Black metal is just not even coming together in its Norwegian form at this point. Uh, yeah, this was like, the really homemade, and you can see it in the. I'll look at the layouts here, right? Very, very, very primitive, very primitive. Literally, like it looks like the guy. Yeah, this was typed. Probably not even on a home computer. Right? They weren't super common back then. Maybe a word processor. They had them, but totally analog. And you see, I'm just looking at the layouts, and still it's laid out very well. Laid out very well. So I don't know. Yeah, Dennis. I don't know if Dennis J. Juktinis. I don't know if I'm not sure if he's still with us or not. But to think that this thing has been running as many times as it has, look, and you hear, we get into the monster movies or whatever, right? But like published 3 times a year. So originally starting out, so the guy had a modest mail order business, right? If you remember Famous Monsters, a film, man, they had a whole mail order section as well. So, and he had stuff. So it was like kind of a way to like also promote the mail order business. The mail order thing was huge back then. That's how the only way you saw a lot of rare stuff. There's no internet. And I think really that's what this is really a look into, the pre-internet age. And it's funny too how he looking at here, he goes, maybe you're an old monster kid, a fan. Maybe you're someone who's just growing up. Like I guess I was growing up at this time. I like how it was good, bad monster movies. There was still a sense. You don't have that as much now when you look at the all the stuff that's come out since. There was still in this time period, like the 80s, the 90s. There was still a sense of like, yeah, these movies were kind of bad. They were obviously very low budget. They're kind of schlocky. They're kind of silly. You had a whole comedy show based on this thing where you had the little robot puppets making fun of these films. Now, listen, in hindsight, yeah, there was some funny moments in that show, but overall, the whole idea was that this was, schlocky. This was something to be made fun of. It wasn't something to. I mean, take it seriously. It wasn't even. It wasn't something good. And that sort of has, as the years have passed, 3 decades plus have passed since the quaintness of it, the wanting to go back, the nostalgia, the realization of how things have turned out, also in the back of people's minds. Many of the people reading Scary Monsters are now, obviously senior citizen boomers, but at the time they would have been, I guess, maybe my age at this time, or maybe a little younger. So It's very interesting to think about the passage of time in that way. But you could sort of see that there's a lot more respect for this stuff, particularly with what the turn of the century, which was more than 9 or 10 years from this time, was going to show. Okay, when you thought everything was on the cusp of greatness with DVDs and digital and all this. So anyway, in terms of what they do, they basically just describe. Now remember, it was not as easy to find these films back then. So when you had a film, like I never saw this film. I always saw pictures of this film. I never saw this film. So they would give you a description of it. This film I remember seeing. Oh my goodness, at my grandfather's house in Allentown, the day the world ended. I remember taking it so bloody seriously. This film. So for basically shooting a film at somebody's summer home in the California hills. You come up here and almost the crazy monsters. Once they got Roy Ashton, very underrated makeup artist. Okay, Paul Blaisdell. Okay, Paul Blaisdell, who made all the monsters for the Corman films, also, and usually played the monster. Very underrated, very underrated. So from Hell It Came. I mean, these are things we know. We know, of course, we got the Hammer. Hammer films was still kind of looked down upon at this time, believe it or not. Yeah, I know. Invasion of the Saucermen. Remember the crazy with these little things? These things were scary, bro. They were crazy, but actually their invasion was pretty. They couldn't even take a bunch of. They couldn't take a bunch of kids necking in the woods, in their cars and stuff. Like they were defeated by like a cop and like two teenage kids. So some invasion. Oh, now I remember seeing photos of this creature. It was so scary to me. And then you finally see the film, and it's like, okay, and there's Lee Van Cleef. Wow, man. But when you see this, I know the thing is kind of silly, but it's crazy. It's crazy, huh? I remember the Italian guy. They make fun, the Italian guy who's one of the soldiers. Hey, you know, paisano. And then at the end, he has the courage. He freaking does a bayonet charge on this thing. So it doesn't work out, but avanti. So, and of course, I didn't see this film till Joe Bob had this on. I always meant to see this when I was younger. I heard this was terrifying. This is actually very well done film. Again, Paul Blaisdell making the costume. This is essentially Alien, So nothing right. This indestructible alien on a ship, where the people are running out of space as this thing rampages through. So I did a little thing on war, but you can see look at the oh, it's so primitive. Look at the typeset. Whatever, man. This was the beginning of the Monster Kid magazine, or the classic fan magazine that has still exists today. And you give them credit. I remember this. This is when they started bringing these monsters back, the models. I actually have one right there. That was fun. So, oh, what's that? But and of course, this is the Illuminators. This is when they had they would come in like some crazy campy color, like illuminated neon color, you know. Though these are hard to find. So anyway, you just see how they got the little comics. They got a little, who's this? Eugene Maurice Horowitz died. Oh, Michael Landon, right? The America's a father on Little House on the Prairie. And a Teenage Werewolf. Actually, the Bonanza. Actually, those were good shows, bro. Highway to Heaven. And this is just. It was just fun looking at this. Oh, okay. Here's now. Of course, this was obviously written. This is drawn on a pad or something. Popcorn. I remember Popcorn. Popcorn actually is a nice little film. It actually is, like the parody films that they show at this horror showing are kind of funny in and of themselves, but this was actually a decent film in the VHS days. However, of course, real quick, where is this? This is talk about FX that I would do. This is the beginning of the end, right? With the giant grasshoppers. And of course, it's just a grasshopper put against a photo of a city. So it works, though. It works. But getting back to this review, I'll end this with the whole idea of remember I said the Hammer films for many years were horrible films, lurid films, blah, blah, blah. Now they're respected. Well, this was from the time when the Hammer stuff was starting to get acclaimed, but the Italian horror stuff was still, everyone put their nose up at it or closed it, pinched their nose These were the worst. Lucio Fulci was a hack. The Italian stuff was horrible. It was cut to shreds and nobody cared, edited and whatnot. And now, obviously, when the DVD at the end of this decade comes out, you start to get a reappraisal. You start to see the passage of time, the effect it has. Things don't look the same to you. Okay, I'm not just talking about films. I'm talking about historical events. I'm talking about even things that may have happened to you in your own lifetime. But regardless, you can see, oh, Gates of Hell, this is stupid, this is bad, blah, 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 there's no story, da, 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 da. You gotta get Italian horror. You gotta understand the visuals and the aesthetic and the atmosphere. And many of them is a lot more important than any narrative. Right? But I'm not gonna argue with someone who, I mean, the other thing too, on my end, and I'll just end it with this. When you read like letters, you read names of people writing articles or writing letters or reprinted or whatever. There's always that thought in the back of your mind: is this person maybe not around anymore? Okay? And it's not something I think a lot of because I'm very familiar with many people passing away before their time, and then eventually, if they live a normal life, passing on as a normal thing. But it's always, you always wonder. But you know what? Their name is in print, saying something. It's something. It's something. So man, look how cool this was. Talk about. I like the black, white, and green. Color scheme, man. Pretty cool, man. Good, man. Scary monsters. Just I don't know what to say, man. DIY, bro.